Welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is the podcast created to help you become a rock star of the recording studio. Hey everybody, it's Lid Shaw, your host of Recording Studio Rockstars, the podcast bringing you inside the recording studio. I created this show to introduce you to real-world recording professionals to hear their stories and learn from their experiences so that you can take your recordings to the next level and become a rock star of the recording studio yourself. My special guest on today's show is David Glenn, a professional mix engineer from Orlando, Florida, who has worked with many great artists, including Pablo Villatoro, Blanca Callahan, LaRue Howard, the American Idol finalist Jeremy Rosado, and Aimee Allen on Warner, to name a few. David generously shares his experience with you through his site, davidglennrecording.com, where he creates YouTube tutorial videos, podcasts, blog articles, and a complete set of products to train you and help you learn recording and mixing. One of his coolest products is themixacademy.com, a membership site where David shares the complete mixing process from start to finish, while members virtually watch over his shoulders to learn the tricks and techniques that David uses to create professional mixes. I'm so psyched to have David Glenn with us today on Recording Studio Rockstars. David, are you ready to rock?
Oh, yeah, man. Let's do this.
Awesome, dude. Welcome back, man. I know we've had a chance to chat before. This is your first time here on Recording Studio Rockstars. So some of our listeners may already know you, and hopefully a lot of people are meeting you for the first time, which would be pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's great to be back, hanging out with you.
I've given a little bit of an introduction, and I'm sure I glossed over some really important points. So can you tell us a little bit more about who you are and how you got into this and what you do?
Yeah, man, for sure. I grew up in Orlando, Florida. I was a soccer player. I needed something to do when traveling from hotel to hotel. We were on a travel team, so we went from city to city in Florida in the Southeast. And one of my friends on the team had a guitar, and he had the Weezer Blue album. I fell in love, man. It was insane. That, and then I had another buddy near my home who had, Nirvana and some of that stuff. And so it just became instant love. I began to play the guitar, would go to their houses all the time. I feel bad, like I was using them to get my hands on a guitar. That Christmas, I was like 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there. My grandma bought me a Strat. It was a Washburn Strat.
That's a lyric of a song, isn't it? My grandma bought me a Strat.
And my grandma got me a Strat. Yep. So that, and then the next year it was a 4-track recorder, a little Tascam Porter Studio. And so then I was traveling from hotel to hotel with my guitar, my little Zoom effects pedal that sounded terrible, but it was something to get creative with. And that went into my 4-track. And from there it became cakewalk on a PC. I was hooked, man, writing songs. I was into a lot of pop punk, melodic type stuff. And so I would record a rhythm guitar and then come up with a lead riff and just start layering.
And they're all fast eighth notes, like
yeah, man, right? Absolutely. Early Blink-182, Cheshire Cat, Strung Out, The Misfits, Rancid, Operation Ivy. I mean, I was all over and then in the same, I was weird like that. I would go from that to Martina McBride and Faith Hill and Backstreet Boys. And I mean, I'd listen to everything. If it was music, I listened to it and I wrote around that, just anything with a good melody. I love pop stuff and top 40. Casey Kasem on Sunday mornings, traveling to the soccer field was, it was religion. And
That's great.
That and the BLT in between games with my dad at, at the little mom pop restaurant there. But yeah, man, so guitar, 4-track, to PC, to eventually the Digi-001. I was at church. The youth pastor, worship leader, hooked me up with the Digi-001 and Pro Tools. I think it was like Pro Tools 5. And I'd seen the Mix Plus system and worked a little bit on that, but I really got into Pro Tools big time at around Pro Tools 6, right where OS 9 was becoming OS X for the first time, and we lost all our plugins.
And I totally remember the Digi-001. I still have one upstairs. Like, it was so awesome.
Oh, man.
I'm loath to ever get rid of it. I don't want to throw it away.
No.
But I bought that. That was my first one, too. It was like my foray into actually having a computer studio and using Pro Tools. And I think it was like 1999 when I got my Digi-001.
Yeah, it was crazy, which is why I was so thankful. And then I went from that to an inbox. My parents got me a G4 and an inbox. And man, I was in heaven. It was music day and night. And, so I got my start as a writer, as a guitar player. All guitarists are frustrated drummers. So I wished I was a drummer and wasn't. So I programmed drums and got into the early Tune Track Superior type stuff and MIDI grooves, and then switching things around to make them sound like more of a live drummer. And I bought a beat machine with a buddy. We went in on it together. It was, I remember it being expensive. I can't even, it was a Korg something or another. And Electribe.
Electribe, one of those things, right?
Yeah, we got one of those, and we had the EMU, and then we had the Akai, and we just stacked them. And I originally went into buying a beat machine. It's kind of funny, so that I could program live drums and make like Goo Goo Dolls type music. I was really into the pop rock stuff. I got it, and I started messing with it. I was like, this is not what this is for. I'm young and dumb, and so I ended up learning how to program beats and make music for all styles, from hip hop to R&B to the pop stuff, like I said, the boy band stuff, New Edition. I was all over the place. And then country, I had two main friends that I made music with. My buddy Jairus, and we did the Goo Goo Dolls pop rock type stuff, and then even into some of the heavier rock. And then I had another buddy, my man Arthur, and we would do hip hop, boy band, R&B. It was just, I don't know, just two crazy styles, completely different. I would just love making records, love writing songs and stacking and layering and doing production. That led me to the studio. Home studio was, first led me into trying to find a good studio to work at. Landed at Stark Lake Studios. I was about 18. I showed him some of the stuff I recorded on my inbox. My buddy Harry Gettings, really good friend of mine. His family owns Stark Lake Studios in Ocoee, Florida. Beautiful, beautiful studio. And that led to me moving. I think I moved to Indianapolis, ended up in the recording studio, Azimuth Recording Studios, had my hands on, real mics for the first time, producing records. And
so how'd that feel? So you had already had all this experience producing and creating music. You knew what it was like to record with a multi-track in the computer, Pro Tools or Cakewalk. I guess you were strictly Pro Tools probably at that point. And then your first chance into a real studio with all these microphones. What was that like for you?
It was a humbling experience, because here I am, Pro Tools expert certified. I've been on Pro Tools for however long, and now I learned what a C12 is, or a C800G, or a pre-Berlin Wall 57, or whatever. We had a ton of mics at that studio, and I would say there was a little bit of an ego going into it, and then I came out a little more humble, like, oh, so this is how you use a microphone, and this is where you put it. And so I had the Pro Tools and the editing and the chops going for me, writer, producer, whatever. But that was a huge experience, man, to be in a real studio, get my hands on some good mics, and learn what things were supposed to sound like. I'm not talk crap about Rode mics or budget microphones at all. I still to this day will use several of those caliber mics, but man, a C12, vintage C12 and C800Gs, man, it was a big deal. That, and then the real preamps was a great experience to.
Well, you talked about getting a Strat from your grandmother, and like the difference between the Strat that you go get for a couple $100s at Guitar Center versus, finding one of these vintage ones from the 50s, 60s, 70s.
Oh, yeah.
That just really are like an incredible guitar. There is a difference there. But let's not get into that too much, because not everybody's got one of those. Not everybody has a budget for a $50,000 guitar, or even, has the opportunity to get on a real C12 microphone. And yet, as we know, you can make pretty fantastic music without having any of those things.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Actually, I was just online and I saw Pro Tools Expert did a shootout of preamps. Man, go figure. The the inbox, it was a blind shootout, and the inbox won for preamp on vocals.
Really?
I couldn't believe it, man. Yeah, absolutely insane.
What's funny about that is probably, we start with a vocal sound that's so clean and pure. And by the time you're done mixing, you've added back some harmonic distortion and some compression. And sometimes all you need is an inbox mic pre to start out with all the right sounds like that.
Sure. I have an Apollo Twin. I'm a big Universal Audio fan. Even with that, when I record vocals, sometimes I use the preamps, and sometimes I'm like, my bypass the preamps a little cleaner, a little more transparent. So I go with that, and then, make a decision later. I'm all for committing to the sound right away, but at the same time, if you're you're starting to record and you experience uncertainties, it's almost better to leave yourself with the option rather than commit to something you're not sure that you really want.
Well, now you're touching on a topic that we might as well jump into for a second,
Yeah.
which is you never really know what sounds best until you check some stuff out. So you might assume that this must be your best choice of vocal chain, this mic, this particular preamp. But sometimes you just need to plug into a few things and listen and then just pick which one sounds best. And sometimes you don't know what's going to sound best until you get on the microphone with a pair of headphones and you hear your own voice coming back.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would tell a little story here. When I went to Azimuth Recording Studios, it was my first experience with these, great sounding microphones. What I would do is I would mic everything. I use all of them. So for a vocal, I would throw 5 or 6 microphones in front of the singer. I think it's great for educational purposes, but I have clients coming in and I'm like, all right, well, go ahead and sing the chorus into all these mics. They'd sing it 5 times and then I'd pull them in and we'd pick which one sounded best. For a big budget record, maybe that's cool, but I did it because I was almost being a little selfish. Like I want to learn these mics and learn how they're each reacting, responding, what it sounds like. And then preamps, didn't really change preamps too much as a shootout for that. But, getting to hear the different nuances of the mics and how they reacted to the vocalists, that was a great educational experience. And I wouldn't have had that if I wouldn't have thrown that up. We would record drums. I swear I would put like 16 mics up. And then I even had one over the drummer's head that would go into a booth we had in the live room where it would plug into my pedal board that had way too many pedals on it. And then would go into the guitar amp, and then I mic the amp up with 2 or 3 mics.
That's awesome. I remember a student project when I was in school. I was in there recording my music and doing some guitar solos. And I had the same thing. I wanted to experiment and try anything. And I think I had my guitar running out through pedals to my guitar amp, being mic'd up, coming back in through a mic P and a compressor, then going through the console, and then being fed through an aux bus back out to a set of headphones, which I dropped in the bottom of a trash can and then stereo mic the top of the trash can. That was my guitar solo.
Man, that's awesome.
And guess how it sounded?
Like crap.
Yeah, it sounded terrible.
Yeah.
But I had a great time doing it.
Hey, I remember using, there was a baby monitor. The guy who owned the studio had just had my friend, I say that guy, but my buddy Ryan Atkins had a baby, and there was a baby monitor laying around in the studio. I was like, hey, let's, put the mic on drums and put the speaker in the other room and then mic the speaker. And it actually sounded really, stick a trashy mic or something in front of the kit, use it as an effect or something to blend in. And this actually was that. It sounded really, really good. Trashy, distorted, nasty, but it fit with the kit. It sounded pretty sweet.
Yep. All right. So here's a secret weapon for any of our listeners, for rock stars out there. If you can find an old mini micro cassette recorder, I don't know if I doubt they still make them anymore, but they're a little tape cassette recorder, and they're real small size tapes for doing dictation for business and things like that. Those things always had the most badass compressor in them. And what you do is you just put it into record and pause or let the tape roll, and then you would just plug in a cable into the headphone jack and then run that through a direct box, a DI box, and use that as a microphone. Man, you cannot parallel that sound. It's super cool, crunchy, in your face. You can blend that with other mics. So there's a little secret tip for you.
Hey man, what was that thing that Macaulay Culkin used in Home Alone? The talk boy. Go find you a talk boy on eBay and set that up in front of the kit.
But first you got to start by watching the entire movie, start to finish.
The whole trilogy. Come on.
The whole trilogy.
The 4th one doesn't count. It's not a real movie.
So we've been cruising along here, and I want to ask you now for your inspirational quote to launch off our interview here.
I thought about this. I could be really spiritual and deep, but really, man, I think about the incredible words from, what's his name? I'm going to botch it, but...
Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yeah, right. Get her done, man. Just get her done.
Oh,
Work.
yeah.
That's all I can think. It's so many options, so many things to do in this business when it comes to making music. And man, just pull it up and make music. Make decisions, commit early, get stuff done. Because without it, I mean, you're not going to learn the whole 10,000 hour rule. You're not going to get there without, serious commitment to finishing things. And I will admit I suck at finishing things. So I have to push myself, set goals and meet them. But yeah, get her done. I got to take my own advice with that.
So you said commit. So
yeah,
what's a good advice for somebody? How exactly do you commit early? What is a way that you could commit early and creating music or recording?
Yeah, sure, man. So I think about a bass guitar. I bought a bass recently, went and picked up a Fender Jaguar bass, beautiful sounding instrument. Go figure. I was producing a record and I was pushing a rough mix together and I was like, man, it just feels a little light. Like, what's going on here? I forgot to record the freaking bass guitar. So, and then I look around, I'm like, dang it, I don't even have a bass. Let me go buy a bass. So I bought a bass online, did a next day shipment. I got the thing, plugged it in. I like a dirty bass guitar sound. I like a lot of crunchy mid-range and, for depending upon the song and the style, of course. So I pulled it in, plugged it into my Apollo Twin, pulled open a preamp, drove it nasty, and I thought to myself, maybe I should leave this clean because you never know what I want to do, or maybe it's too much. And then it's just like, you know what? Forget that. Let me just commit. I like it. I think it sounds great. Let's make it happen. And so I recorded it with, the distortion on it. And so that bass guitar is mix ready. It's ready to go. It helps to be a mixing engineer and, know kind of what you're going for in the mix. But something like that, vocals, compression, EQ, learn how to do it because it can be beneficial to do that in the tracking phase. Committing early, reduces your workload on the back end.
Yeah. Okay. That makes me think of something cool. So you talked about it helps to be a mixing engineer and know where you're going. So to our listeners, David Glenn, your expertise is teaching people how to mix, teaching people how to make great mixes. Let's talk for a moment about that. So with the more experience you get mixing and you begin to really know what you want it to sound like at the end, at the finish line, how does that reverse engineer to help you begin to understand how to make better recordings at the starting line?
This may not be the best answer, but let me explain something I came across recently. I got my hands on a client of mine worked with a really incredible A-list mixing engineer. Part of their deal was he got the session. Well, being that I have every plugin known to man, I was able to open that session and kind of reverse engineer what this mixer did. And let me tell you, I was extremely depressed because he barely did anything. I'm talking basic moves, basic EQ and compression, very little extra oomph, saturation. No real tricks were involved in this mix. And it sounded amazing. So I would say that, it depends on who you're working with as a mixer, but I definitely need to go find some of the best recording engineers out there and start taking them to dinner because I can pretty much guarantee you this took this guy less than 3 hours to do the full mix. Your question wasn't really that, but in hindsight, as a modern day mixer, we're taking stuff that isn't recorded that well, or it's all recorded with nothing. And we're having to kind of go back and vamp up the recording of it and add to it, add character. A lot of cleanup and editing goes into making a mix sound good that wasn't, taken care of well in the recording process.
So the point is that, you studied this track that sounded fantastic when it was mixed. And when you took a good close look at it, you discovered that when it was recorded, the tracks already sounded pretty close to the way they ended up sounding when it was mixed, right? So that sort of implies that mixing, certainly an opportunity to know when you don't need to change something. Mixing is saying, I want this to sound a certain way, or I have a vision for it when it's done, when it's finished. And you might start with a track that's already sounding like that. And if you can record it so that it sounds the way that you would want it to sound when it's done, then more power to you. But yet again, mixing's also knowing that if it doesn't sound that way yet, here's the tricks and the things that I can do to really change the sound from the tracking sound so that it now sounds awesome in the mix. And I feel like, that's part of having the skill set of mixing is knowing when to do almost nothing, but when you need to do something, knowing how to do it. And that's one of the things that you really teach so well in your courses, in the Mix Academy, is you show people when you need to manipulate things, when you really need to change them, here's how you do that.
I'm a big proponent of reverse engineering presets and looking at, plug-in presets and stuff to try to figure out, well, what were they thinking with adding that much top end or bottom, and trying to learn from the pros, watching as many tutorials as possible. I create tutorials for a living now, really. I'm still, man, I watch everything that comes out. I'm always learning, always studying, always trying to grow. I give credit where it's due. If I learn a technique from Andrew Sheps because I watch his tutorial, I'll say that, or Dave Pensado, but we all kind of learn from someone else anyway. So I just like consolidating that information that's out there. There's so much to learn with the mixing side of it. Recording, I'm all over the place. I've got babies crying in the background.
That's great. I think I hear a siren in the distance or something. That's awesome. So let me take you on to some other questions. You've come a long way, started out early, recording in your bedroom, rocking out with guitars and 4-tracks. You've learned how to mix really professionally. Now you're bringing it back to everybody and teaching everybody how to do this. That's a big, long journey from start to finish. We can look at what you've done now and we could say, man, that's so fantastic. How would I ever do that? Humanize it for a minute. Tell us about an important failure or setback that you experienced along the way that, might be an inspiration to others or that you turned out to be really a blessing in disguise for you.
That's a deep question, man. I'm trying to think of the right way to answer it. I think that there's so many variables and small pieces that add up to a career making music to make a living out of it. Maybe I answer it like this. Growing up I'm only 31, but growing up in the music industry, I've always been really bad, to be honest, about under-promising and over-delivering. Is that the right way to say that?
Right.
Promising one thing and falling short. I've had a hard time with that. And so I think that there's anything that I've learned the hard way, it's communication with clients, dealing with people, serving their interests first, coming out of Pro Tools expert certification to someone telling me that the kick drum doesn't sound right. I'm like, what do you what do you know? So having to humble down and make sure that I remember it's about serving people and what they want. I recently interviewed Jonathan Roy for our Mix Academy web show. Mm-hmm. And something he said was, look, if they want their house or their door painted yellow, it's their damn door. Paint it yellow. You can say, hey, I think it should be red, but ultimately it's about what they want. I do well with that now. I think I do really well with that with clients, but that took some time to get through my head of serving the client, not what I wanted.
Well, that's interesting. So you talk about, if you're working with clients, they want the yellow door, paint it yellow. They're the ones who have to walk through the yellow door all the time.
Exactly.
And back up that record as their own. Whereas, if you're the mixer on it, you walk through that yellow door when you're making it, and then you're probably on to helping somebody else with their door next time. But I'd flip that around too, and I'd say that sometimes we need to be reminded of that when we're working on our own stuff, which is to say, if you're mixing your own record or you're in the studio recording your own stuff, you're trying to ask yourself, well, what color door should I get?
Yeah.
Well, if you want a yellow door, that's all that counts. Just make yourself a yellow door. So I know that sounds a little weird. It's being very metaphorical here.
No, that's a huge point, man. And we have the ability to record and make our own music nowadays. Do that. It's dealing with clients is really, really tough for me. Personalities and all that. It's something I've gotten way better at. I'm a stubborn person. I like it. I like kicks to have a lot of sub and bass to have a lot of sub. And when the client calls me and says they're in their car stereo and it doesn't feel good because it has too much bass, I'm like, well, what do you know? You should have bass, but it's a lesson to learn.
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to encourage people to remember that you can just decide what you want to do and do it. And, all the greatest records, all the stuff that I've always admired the most in arts and music, always has somebody just being true to themselves and making a really bold move.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. I completely agree.
All right, so now take us to a point in your path here, your journey, that is sort of a success moment for you. Where did you have a moment where you're like, you really did something right?
When I went to Azimuth Recording Studios in Indianapolis, and I was, I was kind of looking for an internship, even though I was expert certified. I knew all the Pro Tools keyboard shortcuts and, was making good music as a writer. I still, was not a real recording engineer with years of experience. And so I think that one of the moments that really shifted for me was after a few months there. I had a couple of weeks. I think the Pro Tools expert certification helped me to not have to do the intern thing too long. There was a few weeks there where I, cleaning bathrooms and some of that stuff. But I got my hands on the console in a big time session running Pro Tools. That record was Aimee Allen, and she was signed to Warner, if I remember correctly. It might have been an independent deal type thing. But getting in there and being quiet, but then picking the right moment to suggest a thing here and there, fill in a couple holes, gave me credibility with her. She said, that's it, you're producing my record. And so I did not produce the record, but I helped produce the record. She produced the record. Ryan Adkins produced the record. We were a team. It was like a nice little team in there. I would say that gave me the confidence boost that I needed to kind of take things to a more serious level. And so I started editing. I did all the editing on that record. And worked with Ryan on some of the mixes and sat in on this and that, played a little guitar, played a Papa John's pizza box and, percussion. Kind of got my hands wet in it. But yeah, so that was...
Did you eat the pizza first, or did you just play it with the pizza in there?
Oh, man.
What's the better sound?
I ate the whole pizza. I would say probably with the pizza in it, but who wants to do that?
Well, you probably could if you played so much soccer growing up.
Large pizza was a once-a-week occurrence at our house. But yeah, so working on her record was a big confidence boost. Went and got released nationally, being able to walk in the mall and hear the stuff that I worked on playing as, people are shopping and stuff that, was on the radio, it was a big deal. It gave me a huge boost. It was like, I could do this. This is all the uncertainties that come with getting into the music business. You finally hear something you've done go on the radio and start to chart and do well and find success and all of that. It definitely was a huge moment of confidence boosting.
That's cool, man. I love that stuff. So, all right, now tell us about something you're excited about right now.
Well, right now, with the teaching aspect, I'm running the Mix Academy, and the thought occurred to me that it would be cool to kind of have a web show. So I teamed up with some of my friends from within the Mix Academy, guys that had been subscribed to my site and just people I'd become friends with. We started a web show where we're, doing interviews, kind of our own little Pensado's place without trying to take away anything from, they have their audience, they're huge, and we love that show. I'm a big fan of their stuff. Something similar with a little more laid back feel, kind of, we're doing the online go-to meeting type thing, just web chat, webcam. So I'm kind of putting some eggs in that basket to see where it goes. If it is something that people enjoy, it seems to be well received. As of now, we've done 6-7 episodes. So just try to bring kind of like what you're doing. And actually, I was going to say, we got to have you on the show, man. Come co-host with us.
Right on, man. I'd love to.
But yeah, man, just getting inside the heads of people who are better at what they do than what I am and learning from them. If there's, a selfish motive in there, what Dave Pensado says, he learned so much from the show. Getting to meet great people, connecting, spreading the word, but then also using that as a way to propel what I do as a teacher, and build the fan base up to help people learn how to mix records better. And that's kind of where we're at nowadays, is the web show and more tutorials.
I'm going to draw a little analogy real quick. So I went to Middle Tennessee State University to go to recording school, 20 years ago.
Nice.
And one of the things that I felt I experienced in that, 2.5 years in school, one of the values I certainly got value from the classes and learned how equipment works and recording consoles, things like that. But one of the values was just I was around all these people for 2.5 years. I was surrounded by peers who were interested in the same things that I was interested in. We were all studying together, and it was that mutual interaction that helped me gain a much better understanding of what I was trying to learn. Your description of the web show, bringing people together, using the technology of being online and video conferencing to be able to have and build a community around it. I know you, for example, I believe you have a private Facebook group that goes along with your Mix Academy, for example. And the Mix Academy itself is a place where people can gather and really commune with mixing, and learning this stuff. So I think that's one of the cool things about it. It's not always teacher to student. Sometimes it's also community, and it's like student to student. It's, surrounding yourself with peers.
Oh man, I tell you what, I learn a ton from, if I call them my students, every day. I go into the forums or the Facebook group. I don't act like I know what I'm talking about. If I'm talking, the technical side, I come from a writing and production background. So, things like gain staging, it's taken a little bit of time for me to cut through and put my pride to the side and finally listen to some of the people who know more than I do. But gain staging, recently I've learned from some of my friends within the Mix Academy. We have a chat room with some of the guys where every single day, hour on the hour, since I've been doing this interview, I have 70 or 80 missed messages from these guys. Just nonstop music, man. And I learned so much. I think as home studio, the one thing I will say about the home studio that I miss about being in a big studio is that it's the connection. It's the interaction with people who are like-minded individuals who love what we love, the music, the recording process. Hey, I did this and had a good result. Oh, hey, man, I used this and it kind of sucked. Don't do that. That interaction is so key, man, which is why I love the Mix Academy community aspect. And whether it's my site or dueling mixes or any of them, man, getting around people who love music and who love creating music is going to help you to grow tremendously, especially when it could be all too easy. And I'm guilty of this, to sit in my home in this room with no adult interaction or engineer interaction. So getting involved with an online community is huge, I think, to kind of cutting down on the learning process.
Well, so right on. So I think it's time for us to start shifting gears, and we'll enter into the jam session, a final series of questions that I can ask you, and you can kind of give quick answers or quicker if you want to, or we just keep talking about stuff, whatever.
Yeah, sounds good, man.
Cool. So, but before we go into the jam session, I want to let our listeners know that David has been kind enough to offer us a special deal on the Mix Academy. So if you are interested in checking out the Mix Academy and you would like to learn more about it, you think it might be something that would be good for you, all you need to do is text Mix Academy to 33444. Again, that's Mix, M-I-X, Academy, A-C-A-D-E-M-Y, to 33444, and that will send you a link to a special offer that David's going to tell you about right now.
Yeah, man. So if you guys take advantage of Liz's offer there, I'm going to throw in a bonus set of multi-tracks for joining the Mix Academy. So you're going to get, I think it's about 3 or 4 songs extra. You get 1 song when you join. You get the previous month's content that I don't necessarily market, but it's there. So you get 2 months of content, and I'll throw in a bonus set of multi-tracks for using his link there.
Dude, that is awesome. What a great deal. Thank you for doing that, and really appreciate you creating a special offer for listeners of Recording Studio Rockstars. So thank you.
I love it, man. Absolutely.
Hey everybody, it's Lid Shaw, and we're just about to go into the jam session for the final round of questions. But before we do, I wanted to remind you that David Glenn has offered a special deal to listeners of Recording Studio Rockstars. All you need to do is text Mix Academy to 33444, and David will throw in bonus sets of multi-tracks if you sign up. That's a sweet deal. Don't forget about it. Mix Academy 33444. Well, let's jump right into the jam session then, and we'll move forward.
Let's do it.
All right. So tell us at the beginning, what was something that was really holding you back from getting started? What was a real obstacle for you?
I'm going to throw this out there. My grades. My parents took away my guitar when I got bad grades. That I held myself back by not applying myself in school.
And so you came through with that and finally applied yourself, or did they still have your guitar now?
No, I eventually turned 18 and bought my own.
Nice. Nice. All right, cool. And then what if, now, is there a measure when people are in the Mix Academy? Do they get graded somehow that their parents might take their guitar away from them?
No grades.
All right, cool. Everybody's a winner. Everybody gets an A+.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, and so tell us, what was some of the best advice that you remember receiving in recording music?
Actually, I'm going to throw Graham out there, because I met up with Graham Cochran of the recordingrevolution.com. It's going on 1.5 years now, I think. I met him at a little seminar here in Orlando, and he told me not to hold back as far as, and I guess that applies more to the online world, but he told me 2 things. He said, don't hold back, serve people, and you'll see growth in your business. And then number 2 was under promise, over deliver. So, if you say you're going to get something back to someone in a week, do it in 3 days. I think, and I'm still learning that. I'm definitely not good at that, but those are 2 things that I definitely think will help people to find success in their home studios, recording, and just in life in general, even.
I think that actually comes straight from Star Trek. I'm pretty sure that who is the engineer down in the bottom there? Anybody? No, nobody's going. Anyway, the captain. He's always like, Captain, I'm going to need a week, and he's like, you've got 3 days.
That's hilarious.
He's like, all right. So he would always, he'd overestimate, and then that way he could over deliver because he would under promise.
Man, that's awesome. That's
and
hilarious.
It worked for the USS Enterprise. So.
What was the accent again?
Oh, Captain. I don't remember. Was it Scottish, right?
Yeah.
Somebody out there is cursing my name for not remembering such an obvious name in the show, but I apologize.
I'll let them bring me down then, because I actually don't know anything about Star Trek. I'm sorry.
Oh man, what great sounds too. Speaking of which, go back, listen. Here's some things. If you really want to find amazing sounds in science fiction, go listen to early Star Trek, all like the theremin stuff and like the boingy tapes and spring reverbs and synthesizers, and go listen to early Doctor Who, totally fantastic old
Nice.
analog synths, and then go watch the first episode of Aliens.
Shoot, that's awesome, man. I'll have to check
Really,
it out.
really amazing sound effects. So anyway, I digress, but I like that stuff.
Cool, man.
Okay, cool. So now, how about sharing with us a great recording tip, hack, or secret sauce? Something that our listeners could use right now in their recordings.
Ooh, that's a tough one. You know, I found that there are so many small moves that add up to a great sounding record. What's a big one? You know what? Top-down mixing. For those of you that are mixing in a home studio, that, and you know what? Let me throw out a plugin. I recently learned about SonarWorks Reference 3 headphone plugin. Holy cow. If you're in a home studio, you're probably going to be using headphones, at least for something. And I'm weird. I like to mix on headphones. So what this plugin does is it helps to flatten the response of the frequency curve of your headphones. So like I use a Sennheiser HD650s. By putting this plugin on, it will add sub, because there's barely any in these. It will remove some of the low mids, and it's very, very, very accurate. And then it does some weird stuff to the upper mid range and the top end that helps flatten it out. And I've begun to mix with this plugin on 100% wet, and holy cow, my mix is to another level, man. Absolutely killing it with this plugin.
Wow, that's cool. I like that. I do a lot of stuff with headphones. I've been actually using the Biodynamic DT770s for years and years.
Yep. I used to use those, yep.
And I'm wearing them right now, in fact. They're fuzzy and comfortable. But I mix at the Bonnaroo hay bale studio that I've done for 11 years, and I'm in an environment where, I need to use headphones to actually have some isolation from the band.
Yep.
And that's always been the classic struggle for me, is trying to get the low end just right, and the lower mid buildup that can happen that way with all this stuff.
I tell you what, go check out the SonarWorks headphone calibration plugin, and you mix with it, and then you turn it off when you go to print, and it's amazing. It changed my life.
That's cool, man. Now, is this something where you have to tell it what pair of headphones you're using or not?
Yeah, what they've done is they've done custom profiles on a ton of different headphones, and then they take an average of, say, the Biodynamics. They've taken, 50 pairs, and they've come up with an average. They also offer a service where they do a custom profile, and actually I think they're doing that for free. If you're listening in October 2015, they are doing that as a part of the service, and they will send a custom profile for your particular headphones if you either buy through them or if you send them your cans. They'll model them and send it back. It's ridiculous, man. I can't speak highly enough about it.
Well, I will include links to that in the show notes for anybody who's listening. So you can just go check the show notes afterwards on the website at recordingstudiorockstars.com / I don't remember what number we're on now, but it'll be there waiting for you. Actually, the link is going to be recordingstudiorockstars.com /7.
Yeah, it's a plug for them, but well deserved. They're doing great work.
Okay, awesome. So next question: can you share a favorite book or film?
Yeah, you got a few. I love the old Les Paul documentary. I can't remember the actual name of it, but he explains his childhood and the train track and the iron and the strings and making noise and like the whole thing is just so fascinating to me. Multi-track recording. All of that's in there. Also, the Bobby Ozinski books. I think I saw you're going to have Bobby on the show.
We haven't made plans yet, but he has said he would like to be on the show. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be coming up soon.
Hey, man, it's kind of like the early Pensado's Place was Bobby interviewing other pro mixers. So that whole series of Mixing Engineer's Handbook, Recording Engineer's Handbook, those are some of the first books I read. And made a huge improvement in my understanding of recording back then.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Okay, so let's see. Next up, a favorite hardware tool for the studio. Can you share something that you really like? Whether it could be a tuner, could be a capo, could be a click track generator, a metronome, anything.
Going old school. My Apollo Twin. I think that the guys over at Universal Audio killed it with this. I don't know how they did it, but I don't use outboard gear. I'm 100% in the box. And the only hardware I kind of have is an 11 rack, and that doesn't even get used anymore because I've got that same software now in Pro Tools. I'm on the latest version of Pro Tools, and they included 11 and the plugins with my subscription. So that kind of became obsolete. But I guess if you're playing live, it's not completely pointless. But man, my Apollo Twin, I love it. Everything that it does is ideal for the home studio. And
So it's funny. I was just thinking about how you're down in Florida and you talked about not using outboard gear, but you do things in the box. Now, of course, if we take that to, the other use of outboard, like outboard engines on a boat, you're out there in the Everglades speeding around. We should start referring to things as, I use inboard gear. Because that's what you would call the motor, right? It was an inboard motor, not an outboard motor.
Yeah, that's funny, man.
All right, cool, man. All right, so now next up, tell us a favorite software tool. I mean, you've already shared some with us, but give us another one.
Okay. I like using live drums. I like samples. I love the creative freedom that triggering gives us, but I like, when someone spends time in the studio, I like to be able to use those sounds and give them at least first dibs on making the record. So something that helps me to do that is SoundRadix Auto Align. They also have SoundRadix that makes Pi, and they help with the phase relationship of multi-tracked instruments. I use them on drums, acoustic guitars, all that kind of stuff, and I love getting the phase right. That's something I've spent a little bit more time being tedious on in mix prep before I actually push faders up, is to evaluate the sounds and see what I've been given before I make decisions to, take notes, pros and cons. Wrote an article about it on my website. It's kind of like my mixing checklist, and SoundRadix Pi is at the beginning of that checklist, is to kind of evaluate the files and see where to go and make sure the phase relationships are intact.
Okay, cool. Great. I love that, man. I didn't even know about that one yet.
Sweet.
So let's see. I think we're coming near the end here. Now, how about a great resource for the business aspect of doing recording or running your studio?
Ooh, business for studio management. I came across something recently. I don't know the name, so I don't know how much benefit it's going to be, but there is a service where for, I think it's $100, $200 a month, there's a website that is doing bookkeeping. I would say if I were booking clients like I used to, I'm joining the service, but I can't remember the name of it.
Is it FreshBooks?
No, it's not FreshBooks. It's actually like people that will manage your accounting for you for a monthly fee. And so they're going to take invoices and file things and organize it. So at the end of the year, you can just take the information from them, go to an accountant, and bam, you're done.
That's great.
No manual entry on your part. It's simply you create an account with them and they do it for you. I would say anything to take your hand out of that side of it would be huge, but maybe even Facebook ads. Using Facebook ads would be probably pretty critical to having your services online. Finding an online presence and then marketing your services online could expand your business. But
well, you know what? I'm going to mention something about the bookkeeping aspect. So I actually have just started with a new bookkeeper, and I had to find somebody, a physical person locally, and it took a long time. It was hard work to find somebody through somebody else, and we're still trying to get going. So I know you forgot the name of this, but for our listeners, by the time we're done talking to this, David and I will remember, and we'll have that for you in the show notes. So that is a fantastic resource. If there is a place you can go and just sign up and, with a few button clicks, get all ready to go with an online bookkeeping service. I know many people use that sort of feature, and that would be a really great resource for your business.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Hey, let me add to it also. Something that took me way too long to do was to hire an assistant. For me, my assistant helps with email management and some administrative type things. But from the recording studio standpoint, be it editing tracks, mix prep, whatever, trying to cut out some of the technological stuff, the prep work for a small fee. Find a buddy who you'll exchange services with and do it. But man, I can't tell you how much that has helped grow my business over the last 6 months or so.
Yeah. Now, can you share with us some online resources for that, for outsourcing any of the technical stuff in the studio?
Well, I'm considering davidglennrecording.com becoming a host of some editing services and things like that, getting a couple of the guys that I know do killer work super fast and efficiently, listing their profiles up on my website. So that may be there here in the coming weeks. Aside from that, there's a couple of sites out there. What's the main one that I know is studiopros.com for any of the editing type stuff. Odesk. There's easyoutsource.com, Filipino assistants that, holy cow, man, the way that the dollar converts there, it can really help you out if you find they speak English, they speak great English. I've had a Filipino assistant and loved her to death. She did a killer job for me. So that's definitely a great way to go if you're looking for some of the administrative type stuff. Marketing, get an email campaign or something together. Hire a Filipino assistant. Do a bunch of email blasts. Tons of ideas when it comes to that.
Well, I was going to say, even for the technical side, let's say you're doing mixing professionally, you're building up your stuff and you really want to focus more on just doing the audio, maybe, there are resources using those things like you talked about, Odesk. I don't know about Fiverr.com. I don't know exactly what you would find there in this department, but you can you can find people that will help you. You can Dropbox them multi-track files and they'll send them back prepped and edited and cleaned up, and take out some of that prep work that is time consuming for you so you can really focus on the music. So those resources can be pretty cool. And I love the fact that you're going to be adding a really dialed in resource potentially at davidglennrecording.com. So I think anybody who's listening to this now, if you went and tried that somewhere else, you might find some great resources, but you'll soon discover that it's a lot of work to try and find somebody who's really good, who you want to, who you'd like to hire and trust with your music and everything like that. So keep your eyes peeled for what David creates. I think it's going to be good.
Thanks, man. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Awesome. All right, so now let's jump into the final questions here. Are you ready?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
All right, groovy. So this is, just hypothetical, but it's also directed towards so many people who are at a stage where they're trying to get started or get going. If you were dropped into a strange city, David, and you could only take a simple setup for recording, what would you choose? How would you find people to record? And how would you make ends meet to start right away so that you could continue recording and stay on this path and really learn how to make records and keep going with it?
Great question, man. Hey, I'm going to go back to my roots and I'm going to go find me a 4-track recorder and a couple of mics, and I'm going to go to some open mics. I'm going to go find the guys performing on the street. I'm going to hopefully be in a city where there is, good music, and just do anything I can to find people who have good songs. That's huge, is, whether you're a mixer, a producer, if you can find great songs, man, that's what the goal is at the end of the day, is to make great music. And your name will grow with a great song and a bad recording faster than you recording the best quality you can give someone if the songs are crap. It's ultimately about the song and the music. And when people hear good songs, they cling to it. And I listen back. I dread listening to some of the old stuff I used to love, because my ear is tuned now to the high quality recordings, or to the way I like things frequency wise. Mm-hmm. And I go back and I listen. I'm like, oh man, what were they thinking when they recorded that? But the average listener is listening to the music, listening to the song. So if you can get in and find good songwriters, find talented artists to work with, I think that's going to help you succeed way faster than the opposite.
Well, and let's not forget the singer too. You got to have somebody who's got a voice that you really want to listen
to. Absolutely.
That's a sort of a game I like to play every once in a while. If you're just sitting around listening to the radio in the back at a restaurant, you're out and about, imagine taking that track that you're hearing and just removing the voice and see what's left behind it. And just pay attention. And I think sometimes you can be surprised, you can be amazed to discover that the track behind it is not so far off that you couldn't, arrive at that yourself or create something like that. It's like you begin to see.
Indispensable.
Yeah. In other words, you might start to realize that you are creating music yourself that sounds pretty close to what something else sounds like that's inspiring. And if you, take a great singer off that recording and replace it with a singer who's not so great, all of a sudden you don't have a great recording anymore.
No, it loses its soul for sure. The soul of a great song is in the vocalist.
Great. Nice. That quote's going to be showing up
David
at the end of this podcast. Awesome, man. Well, so now you mentioned a 4-track. Just I'm ready to sign off here, but what would be a modern version of a 4-track that somebody would take out? Now, are you talking about like a Zoom recorder, or is there something else people might start with?
Shoot, an iPhone. Multi-track with an iPhone. We were talking with Gannon yesterday from Universal Audio, and he made that statement. He's like, you can make great music on an iPhone. So you can only do so much, but iPhone with an attachment mic or a Zoom recorder or something like that. I mean, we all have a phone that can record nowadays pretty much. So using what you have and just capturing whatever you can and making music with it.
I'm going to throw out 2 suggestions for the iPhone too, because I've spent a lot of time playing around with that.
Yeah.
One is really obvious. It's just GarageBand. GarageBand does amazing stuff inside your iTunes, and it's got all these loops in there, and it's really quick and fun, and you can create some cool stuff right away. But I've discovered that there's one that if you want to sit down with an acoustic guitar and write songs like that, and you don't want to be based on a click track or loops, Multitrack DAW is a fantastic multi-track app on the iPhone that's so simple. You can add tracks to it. You can sort of punch in with your finger without having to look at it and think about it.
Nice.
Really nice for just composing lyrical ideas and writing on the spot.
You know, I downloaded one the other day. Let me look at my phone here and see. Boss Jock.
Oh yeah, Boss Jock is pretty cool.
Yeah, this one's pretty sweet too.
It's for podcasting. It's for doing your own radio show right off your iPhone.
Oh, yep, that is exactly what it was.
That's cool. All right, man. So, I actually have one last question. I'm going to throw it in there. And
man.
I don't always ask it, but here it goes. What is the single most important thing a listener can do to become a rock star of the recording studio?
Hey, man, I'm going to throw it out there and say to listen to Liz's podcast. Listen to Recording Studio Rockstars, man. I'm a fan, man. I saw the Vance Powell episode and Joe Gilder, and I'm hooked, man. I'll be listening.
Awesome. Those guys are so good. I'm so lucky that they took time out to hang out with us. David, thank you so much for joining us on Recording Studio Rockstars. Totally awesome to have you on the show. Can't wait to have you back again. And a reminder to everybody that David has created this fantastic offer for us. If you text Mix Academy to 33444, that will get you signed up for the Mix Academy, or at least take you to it so you can check it out. If you use that link, you're actually going to get a super cool bonus that David has thrown in of additional extra multi-tracks to go with it. So great bonus offer. Thank you so much for that, David.
Yeah, of course, man. It's my pleasure.
David, can you let our listeners know how they can find more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. We have my website, davidglennrecording.com. I give a free VIP mix training bundle to new subscribers where you get to download a couple sets of multi-tracks. There's a whole slew of impulse responses that was modeled off analog gear, a couple free video courses to learn mixing. There's mix prep, working with 2 tracks, all kinds of great stuff there, and tons of free content that hits your email once you join the list. So go check that out. We've got the Mix Academy, like we mentioned, themixacademy.com, and then I contribute weekly to the Pro Audio Files, and you can find our YouTube channel just by searching the Pro Audio Files. There you go, man. So Facebook, all that other stuff is through the site. Pretty easy to find on there. So
cool. And just a reminder to everybody and to myself that we'll be going to catch more of you on the web show that you've created too.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. And again, I want to have you on to co-host it with me.
Awesome. Thanks so much, David. I hope it's warm down there in Florida, but not too hot. And I look forward to talking to you soon.
Sounds good, man. Thanks again.
All right, dude. Cheers. Thanks so much for listening to Recording Studio Rockstars. If you enjoyed the show and want to help make it better, please leave a rating and review on iTunes to help reach more people. You can click directly over to iTunes or go to recordingstudiorockstars.com/review for an easy explanation. And if you want more free content, all you have to do is text RS Rockstars to 33444. Again, that's RS Rockstars to 33444, and I'll keep you in the loop with articles, videos, and podcast updates. And I'll let you know about any upcoming giveaway offers, all totally free. Thanks for listening. I'm Lij Shaw, and this is Recording Studio Rockstars. Now, go make great music.